The rise in consciousness. That's what this whole thing is about, isn't it? The rise in consciousness. What is the rise in consciousness? It can be described in a variety of ways, which is rather ironical because the whole point of the rise in consciousness is that it transcends verbal explanation. But it won't end until it's over, and content like this helps further this process along. Take heed, however, when it is finally over, we will all be standing still. Just something to ponder later on. So, what is the rise in consciousness? Why is it becoming more and more relevant? ... Okay, I'll get started. It has something to do with the fourth dimension. We have a firm understanding of the third dimension, or the physical realm. This is the place where we live and breathe and see things. This is the place where distance between objects or surfaces actually matter, where things actually have a physical property. You are able to navigate the third dimension through your empirical senses: sight, hearing, smell, touch, taste, and so on. All of these things apply to the third dimension, again, the physical realm. The rise in consciousness has everything to do with the fourth dimension. That's where the human race is headed. This is a good thing because in this dimension more things are possible. In the fourth dimension there is no such thing as space and time, not in the way that it is perceived in the third. We are able to communicate with thoughts and feelings. There's that common scene in movies where a mother will be sleeping or something and her son will die some 100 miles away, and she'll wake up and just know that her son is dead. That's pretty much the rise in consciousness in a nutshell. Only now that we are becoming more aware of this skill, I guess we can call it, we are able to start applying it to more practical matters. We are able to communicate with individuals more effortlessly. We are all connected. This also ties into laws of attraction. After a while, all of this information kind of blends in together seamlessly, which is why I'll be glad when it's over. And we can just go back to focusing on other areas of human development. I shouldn't say that, however, since there are those of us who have already moved on beyond this topic of contemplation. I'm just here for the stragglers. Story time. My own experience with the rise in consciousness was quite cathartic, I guess would be a good word. It had started with meditation. I'm not sure why I was able to see the results of meditation so quickly, probably because I'm the most evolved human of all time, but regardless, by the third day of only meditating for 15 minutes each day, I started seeing things quite differently. I remember that day at work quite clearly. Every individual I looked at, whether it was a coworker, a manager, or a customer, they all had their own unique signature. I would pass by an individual and receive information from them just by being in close proximity to them. Pure information. Who they were, what they were thinking and feeling in that moment, anxiousness, contentment. There was even a moment where I thought I had X-ray vision and was able to see people's skeletal and circulatory system. Looking back on that particular moment, I know now that that was really just my brain accessing information I already knew about the inner workings of the human body and projecting that understanding onto the individuals walking around in front of me. Why did my brain do that? Who knows? It was probably going through a reboot. So yeah, that was the third day. Fast forward a year into the future, after flying over to LA and having a panic attack, consuming a gargantuan amount of content on neurology and other facets of brain science, practices and beliefs of yogis, and supernatural occurrences involving matters such as laws of attraction, I exploded. But not first before declaring myself as the smartest man on the planet and humanity's only hope for world peace. What led to that declaration? The secret was in the writing. This is something I would encourage for the individual listener to do in their own time, should they feel so inclined. After consuming all of that information, I became aware of the fourth dimension, so to speak. Time got all weird for me. I was able to predict events a couple of seconds or minutes before they happened. I was able to anticipate when my phone would ring and who it was that was calling. One of my favorite memories during that whole process was myself at a party surrounded by my closest friends. That night I was God in just about every sense of the word. Every thought that entered my head was received across the fourth dimension by the people I had spent most of my young adult life with. I wanted water, my best friend's girlfriend would get up and grab me a glass without me asking for it. I would look at a bottle of beer and want it to move. My friend would grab the bottle and take a sip. I wanted to be fed. I was handed food. It felt like they were all orbiting around me, listening to my thoughts. Very spooky. Mind you, this was all very new to me. A week or so before that experience, I had just made a cloud disappear just from consciously focusing on it, which gave me a lesson in the abstract truth of reality, that it doesn't really exist. Oh yeah, and there was that girl on the park bench in New York. That was a good one. I was sitting there on that park bench in New York, and this young girl had showed up with her classmates and teachers. They were obviously on a school trip to some museum or something. She sat down next to me while the rest of her classmates socialized with each other. We sat there for about 45 minutes next to each other, not saying anything. Her teachers asked her if she wanted to engage with the other students, and she told them she was fine where she was. Finally, they're all getting ready to move on, and the young girl, who was about 12 or 13, she gets called away to join the rest of her class. And as she leaves, she turns back and says, "Bye." Now, that might not seem like a big deal to you, but to me it was an extremely special moment. It was a lesson. That young girl and I had been communicating that entire time we had been sitting on that bench, without saying a word to each other. And by the time she had to leave, we knew each other. We felt some type of kinship or camaraderie towards one another, so much so that she felt compelled to say goodbye as she left. You might not think it's a very good example of the rise in consciousness, but if you think more in depth, it is the perfect example. We are always communicating with one another. Our thoughts intermingle with everyone else's in the fourth dimension. This is why the same invention is able to be thought of simultaneously by two different men in two different parts of the world with no means of communicating with each other, i.e., the bow and arrow. Now, to tie this in with the laws of attraction, once you become aware of the fact that your thoughts are being received by everyone, you can tune your thoughts to control the type of people you meet and the type of experiences you have in life. You can use this technique to steer you out of trouble, to meet the love of your life, or your business partner, or your dream job. It goes on. So for myself, all these experiences were happening to me and my head was swimming with questions. So I set to writing. This is the part that I would suggest for the curious listener. The rise in consciousness shows us just how connected we are, how we are able to attract our own experiences, and so on and so forth. Now, wouldn't you say it's necessary to have a very firm understanding of the type of experiences you want to attract? Establishing a narrative helps severely with that. I wrote my entire life story from beginning to present time as a way for me to observe my own pattern. From observing that pattern, I was able to see my own likes and dislikes, my desires, my habits, my dreams, all from a newfound perspective. I was able to look at all the experiences that had occurred in my life up to that point and reevaluate how they came into existence with my profound and new understanding of the fourth dimension. And then I broke out. That part of the story is a little weird, but to speed through it, I took off all my clothes and ran around the streets of Newark naked. The way I look back on that experience now, my brain simply overheated. And like all computers, when they overheat, they automatically shut down and reboot. At least mine did. Whatever. Now some time has passed since this occurrence, and I continue to write my story. I just want to have a good life. That's all. And yes, maybe my passion is centered around human evolution, but at the core of my being is a desire to experience happiness as often as I possibly can. The rise in consciousness has accomplished that feat for me. Now I feel everything, all the time, and that includes happiness. Soon there will be a very large percentage of individuals all containing the same knowledge that is locked inside my own head. It is my aim to make content for those individuals. It is my aim to build a community with those individuals. These are the ones I am speaking to, my enlightened brothers and sisters. I am seeking you out. At the end of the day, I am still looking for a place to call home. More content to follow on the Apex Frequency.